My name is Margaret Brodkin. I'm the Director of Funding the Next Generation. And I'm here with two co-presenters who I will introduce when the other one gets on. And I hope we're going to have a little bit of fun with this because I don't know if you're as depressed as I am, but we could use some fun thinking about elections instead of feeling horrible about it. So this is for people who are thinking about what they might do for this election season that can make a difference in either an issue you're working on or something in the budget you want to see in your city or in your county in the coming year, or a child care policy you're working on, or you're thinking about a ballot measure for 2026. So it's a kind of, here are our best ideas. Hi, Nicole, you are here.
Hi, sorry everyone. I just came from another training.
Here are our best ideas of sort of what you might do. And it's specifically, this is not a profound, big sort of policy thing. This is like, it's July, the election is in November, and we want people to think about, oh my God, we should take advantage of the fact that there is an election in November. What could we do starting now that might make a difference? And sort of my philosophy about this, having been an advocate for so many years, is never let an election go by without doing something to move your agenda along, because elections are just wonderful opportunities to magnify enormously what you're able to accomplish. So I do have a PowerPoint. I think you can't do anything without a PowerPoint. And I am going to put it on now. Share it, slideshow, slideshow from beginning. So here we are. And who's ever following the chat, Claudia, let me know. And so how do I get Christine on the screen? I see, well, you'll see them when you see them. So I'm going to be joined by two other people. My partner in crime on Funding the Next Generation, Nicole Durs, who is the founder and the principal of 50+1 Strategies, which is a political consulting firm. But however, we got to know each other in San Francisco when she was staff to the Youth Commission. So she then went on to work for Obama and become a star in the political consulting world. And we are so lucky to have her as a partner funding the next generation. And after Nicole and I share our various ideas and experiences, you will hear from Christina Thorstensen, who is Director of Early Childhood Initiatives at the Silicon Valley Community Foundation, and is the, I guess, Director of Choose Children, which is their effort to figure out how to use an election to raise children's issues. And yes, this is about children's issues. So, as I said, my philosophy is you should never let an election pass you by, that if you can use them strategically and cleverly, you can accomplish more during an election season than any other time. And now we're not talking about people who have something on the ballot, although that is what we devote our life to at Funding the Next Generation. But if you're working on an issue, if you want to do a future ballot, et cetera, this is like the perfect opportunity to really greatly amplify your impact, because there is never a time when politicians are not more hungry to get support and not more eager to promise you what you want. So to pass up that opportunity is an enormous mistake. You know, the media is paying attention, the public is engaged, and social media allows you to magnify everything you do with somebody running for office or in an election, a huge amount for no money. So not no money, but very little money. So you can get support from local candidates for your agenda. We will talk a lot about that because this is an ideal time. But while you're doing it, you are also strengthening your coalition. You're building your capacity, your political capital. So no matter how minor or small what you do, getting people involved in an election, helps you with your future goals. And it also is a way to inform voters about your issues. So, Nicole, is there anything else you want to say by way of introduction to this topic?
I think you covered it really well. I mean, I will say it's like, it's a really great opportunity to also build coalition. Margaret talked about this, but like, I can't stress that enough because, so many different folks are engaged and looking at creatively, like, how can we make sure that kids are highlighted and centered in these campaigns? Like, you can take advantage of other people's, ballot measures or candidate campaigns to do that as well, and work in partnership to develop that. So I think these are the top goals, and so I can talk more about them.
So this is like, we have 10 ideas we're going to talk about, going from a very simple, idea to the number 10, which is you can change an election, in my opinion, and feel like I have done it, although I might be taking credit for something that may not be quite accurate. But because one of the reasons it's so important to do something during election is that other people, the people running, the people doing other ballot measures, et cetera, they're doing all the work. They're making lists, they're organizing volunteers. So you can capitalize on other people's work enormously. And it should be fun, especially, I hate to say this for the Solano people who are on and who are going to have a lot of fun with their measure. But if you don't have the pressure of passing your own measure, it certainly can, be a lot of fun. So we're going to go through these ideas, and this is just sort of starting stupid and small. That's my car, and that's the bumper stickers that we have made. And I would have thought this was a stupid idea, and people make buttons and people make signs, and if you really want to get ambitious, but just saying, what you're for and that you're voting. And I ran a child advocacy organization, which some of you know, for 25 years. And I overheard a conversation of people sort of talking about what we did. And they said, oh, that's the organization that does the bumper stickers. And I thought, oh my God, people are paying attention. That does have an impact. So talk about something simple, something cheap, getting people bumper stickers, pins, other things to say, hey, I'm for kids and I vote. So that's number one. I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yeah, actually I do, because I think there's the pieces that you can create that are going to be have longevity, right? Those bumper stickers, to Margaret's point, which I think are great. There's also, what can you do from a visibility perspective to take advantage of a moment? And so one thing I was thinking about is, Mobile billboards are really great. They can drive around and they can go to an event. So like maybe you're like, you know what, we don't have the money to do a lot of these, but there's a huge mayoral debate or a huge, you know, congressional debate in our community. And we want to make sure that people see kids. You could just hire the mobile billboard for one day. So there's a lot of ways that you could think about this that, you know, vary for cost and that vary for longevity. And they're all valuable from a visibility perspective.
Thank you. I never thought of a mobile billboard. And the more we all sit here, we'll think of other great things. So the thing, there will be a bunch of campaigns in your community at the city level, at the county level. And as Nicole points out, there'll be congressional campaigns too. And there are many ways you can get involved in those campaigns that can really make a difference. You can endorse a campaign that is related to kids, whether it's schools or housing or the environment. And by the way, build some longtime allies for your campaign coming down. But it helps you train your people, get out. And if you endorse something, your name is on a slate card, it's on the political mailings, and it's a way to create visibility. So if you are a name endorser of a housing measure or a parks measure, people see who you are. So by the time you make it to the ballot, people will have heard of you. Or you can do your own slate cards. You're allowed to endorse issue campaigns. And we used to send out the children's slate card all the time. It's a simple thing to do. It was a postcard, but to say we're here and we're endorsing these 3 measures because they'll make life better for kids. And then, of course, you can have your people work on campaigns. You can work on campaigns. It's a way to win friends with candidates. It's a way to give people practice. It's a way to learn to walk precincts, etc. So, you know, you can do it wearing your t-shirts or not. Nicole, you want to say anything else about being involved in campaigns?
Yeah, there's a huge spectrum of this, right? So obviously folks get concerned about this when it comes to endorsing candidates. And we'll talk even more about this around like how you can do that as individuals. You can't, you know, not doing it as an organization, but like there is so many things that you can do. And I really encourage you, now is the time to kind of step back and think about how do we want to play in this election, and be intentional about it. Have a real discussion with your organization, with your coalition members, with your volunteer leaders now. And don't be afraid of it, because a lot of times people are afraid about it, and that gets in the way of building the relationships and demonstrating the power that's going to help you be more successful in the long run, or even in terms of influencing these. So step back, have a conversation after this webinar, and really think about what you're going to do and be intentional about it.
Okay. Now we're sort of moving toward what might you want to accomplish during this election season. So you can create a children and youth agenda. Maybe you have one already. Maybe you create one just for the election season. Maybe it's just one thing. Like this election season, we are going to work to get a certain childcare policy passed in our community, or to get people committed to an after-school program for, you know, every child in the community, or to get people committed or knowledgeable about the fact that 2 years from now we're going to run our own campaign for funding for kids. So this is, I have on the screen a kind of an example of a sort of children and youth agenda that people can create for a campaign, but it can be whatever is a priority for you or your coalition. And it can be a tremendously powerful organizing tool that ultimately can end with everybody running for office pledging to do these things. And you can use it throughout the election season, and it can inform all the other things all the other strategies we're about to talk about. So I have seen people use this very successfully. The focus is just summer jobs for kids. Something as simple as making sure there's a budget hearing for kids at your city council, etc. So this is sort of part of the groundwork of doing this, although it doesn't have to be an elaborate thing, and it doesn't have to take you, a year to create it. It can be a meeting and say, this election season, let's all get together and let's make this our agenda item. Want to say anything about that, Nicole?
I think just making sure that you've got a really kind of clear tagline for it, because you're going to be focused on what is the content of this and what's the policy recommendations here, and that's really important. But you want to make sure that everybody knows what this is, right? So is it the kids first agenda? Is it our kids, our future? Is it 10 points for 10 points for kids, like whatever it is, make sure you've got that kind of really pithy, exciting tagline, and that everyone knows what that is. I would create some graphics around it so that it's really visual for people. So you've got again, the content, which is super important, but also there's something really quick and easy that people can visually grab onto, that they know that that's agenda, and slap it on things, right? It might be the same kind of thing that, when you have candidates, you say, if you agree to this agenda, you can use, our logo, support the kids first agenda, or whatever it is. But think about how you're going to be able to communicate that really easily and visually to people.
So this is an example of a kids agenda they did in Philadelphia. And it was something they ultimately asked everybody running for mayor to sign. And it goes from, I believe first and foremost, Philadelphia should be a great place to raise your family. It should be a city with the courage to heal systemic rifts that I can't even read it here, but you can see it, that disproportionately harm children of color. And then all the way to the end where it's about committing to having youth voice in all levels of government. So it's a powerful example that they use. They actually used it for quite a few, from February to November, but it can be something that you can spend a year making up, or you can put it together. So idea number 4, these are all related, of course, so it's sort of a gimmick to say it's 1 through 10. But so if you have an agenda, if you have a tagline, if you have a single goal, you start organizing meetings with candidates. And now we have Zoom, so you can even do it in Zoom. You bring a diverse group of people, you bring a single individual who has influence, and you share what your agenda and what your ideas are, and you can ask them in person for commitments to on those things. We had a great organization of youth development people in San Francisco, and they decided they wanted to visit all the campaign headquarters. And so we had the last 10 days of the campaign. Each of the 2 mayoral candidates were visited by a group of young people, each from a different neighborhood, and bringing representatives of things they had created as young people from their neighborhood. After a while, one of the candidates got kind of tired of it and sort of called us and said, okay, we get the point. Will you stop, having these kids come to our headquarters because it's getting in the way? The other candidate said, okay, how long is this going to go on? And the last day the kids came, it was 10 days. the candidate threw an ice cream party for them. And it became a big public event. It was a wonderful event. And that candidate won, never forgot the ice cream party, and made a list the first several weeks of his of being mayor, of all the things he was going to do for youth. So it's a sort of variation on the theme. So Nicole.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I think it's exciting. There's also an opportunity to be able to say, we have a great, we have a group of youth advocates and we want to meet with you collectively. And we want to be able to have an impact in terms of how you think about the issues. If you can curate that for them, it can be really great. Like as someone who's ran a lot of campaigns, when I used to manage local campaigns, I was thrilled when people did that because I wanted the candidate to understand these issues. And it was a lot of work for me to like find individuals or set up these meetings. And so if you can do the work for them and say, hey, we've got this diverse group of child and youth advocates that want to meet with you, many candidates, it can be a gift. And I would say also reach out to their campaign team too, not just the candidate. Because you want to be able to demonstrate to their manager or their consultant, why this is valuable to them.
And a variation on that, and one of my colleagues reminded me we used to do this, is also go meet with editorial boards or meet with people in various aspects of the news, because they are also hungry to be relevant in a campaign, and they have a lot of choices about what they can cover. So meeting with the media, whether it's individually, whether it's with the editorial board, can lead to really good coverage of your issues and coverage of the candidates' positions on your issues. Nicole.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing is like that this is an opportunity for your media folks to, you to educate them. A lot of times they don't understand what's at stake here. And so making it easy for them, getting them a sort of primer, like here's the kind of bullet points about what's happening on these issues. Here are the pieces that are at stake, or like, here's what we're trying to accomplish, is really good, because a lot of times they need to understand that to ask smart questions.
Yeah. Okay, then this gets to be more fun. So every community is different, but they usually have a variety of candidate forums, and they become a place where the public can go and ask questions. And you want to make sure that at the candidate forums, questions are asked about kids or about your issue or about a specific commitment to your issue. This is a really easy thing to do. It's a couple people on your team need to devote an hour to this. The candidate forums are 2 hours to this. Everybody can, ask similar questions. But what you want to do is get into their head that, oh my God, because they remember there are 10 people who came to the candidate forums who asked about kids, because they remember what people are asking about. It makes a huge difference because they're very attentive at candidate forums. And if they see one candidate, be particularly articulate in response to a question, that inspires them to be very articulate the next time. So it's a simple thing to do, and it can have a big impact. Nicole, you've given all kinds of candidate forums.
Yeah, and you know what? Don't feel like it needs to be a youth specific one. So there's going to be candidate forums that are going to be about public safety, right? You can show up at that candidate forum about public safety and ask a question about supporting children and youth, because we know what it means to keep kids safe. That is much beyond, the idea of, locking people up or engaging police, right? So we want to use these opportunities to also kind of redefine how people think about these things. So you also want to figure out like who's going to be moderating these candidate forums, and can you get involved at the front end? So if it's a local Democratic club or League of Women Voters, can you reach out beforehand and see if they can ask a question about kids? Sometimes they're looking for ideas. And so don't feel shy about doing that. And then also that sort of visual moment, like being there and handing out that kids first agenda, even if it's just a generic public forum, for a mayoral candidate or a state leg candidate, like you can be there handing that out to get people thinking about it.
And also for people in your coalition or network who might be timid about various kinds of advocacy, asking a question at a candidate forum is a powerful but not hard thing to do. It isn't a high risk thing to do. So it's a good thing to ask people who are just getting started at being advocates to do. Now, one of my favorite things that we ever did, which started accidentally, is to call candidates and ask them for their platform on children and youth. Of course, they don't have a platform on children and youth, or if they do, that's great. But when you ask for it, some candidates will say, oh yeah, I'll get back to you on that. Some will say, can you help me develop one? And if you offer to help develop one for all of them, you are certainly free to do that. So, and then if you say, well, we're gonna, put your platform up on social media, it's even more enticing to get all the candidates to have platforms and because this is like a totally competitive time, and they're competing with each other, and competing with each other over children and youth it is a good thing to promote. So I, and campaigns are different in every community, and having platforms on things may not be what's done in your community. Doesn't mean it can't be done. Doesn't mean it has to be complicated. Doesn't mean it can't be on a postcard style, my platform on children and youth. So anyway, Nicole.
Yeah, I love this. I also think it's like this is a great opportunity for creative ideas. And being able to, candidates want to differentiate themselves. And so we know the idea of children, youth, and families is very popular. And so we've got to be able to think about like, how can we give them some nuggets that are going to help them, but are going to increase your agenda? So, it's a really, people may take advantage of these opportunities in different ways, but to Margaret's point, as long as you're offering the same ones, people take advantage of it and they adopt your platform, fine, all good. But try to make it easy for the campaigns, and be bold here too. You don't want to just have milquetoast platforms. That's not going to help you keep them accountable.
Although people do it, and it's better than nothing, and it's nice for a platform that says, I'm going to do right by kids. I'd rather have a platform that says, yes, I'm willing to put, $1 million into summer jobs for kids next year. So,
Yeah.
I have always advised people be as specific as you feel comfortable being, because that's when commitments can really make a difference. This is slightly different, and Christine will be talking about this, but people often use elections as a chance to just mount not just focused on candidates, but to focus on the public. And use it as an opportunity to tell people to vote with kids in mind. So you would promote your agenda, you would promote everything the candidates are saying. You can create all kinds of buttons and signs and everything else to help the public think about, gee, when I vote, I should really think about kids. And this is an opportunity for people to create fact sheets or report cards or to educate the public about what's important. And some of these campaigns have had a big impact. Some go on for several years. And it's not a hard thing to do. And I think it can have an impact on the public discourse. Do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, I think the poll in the context of a campaign is really helpful. And so, being able to say like 75% of folks in Pittsburgh support the need for more mental health funding for youth. You want the questions to get specific enough that it's not just, think we need to support kids, but not so controversial or specific that the poll is not good enough, right? Because the whole point of this is to show popularity. So I do think like sometimes you can get a question on another poll because polling can be expensive. So, maybe to do a poll on its own, it might be $30,000-$40,000, but you could add a question that is on a larger community-based poll for maybe $5,000. So look at opportunities to do that and to use that to be able to promote it. I also think kind of getting again back to that social media piece and like the graphics. You can do a really cool thing. It's called a thunderclap, where like people can set up ahead of time and they can immediately, like at Tuesday at 10 a.m., everybody's Facebook profile changes at the same time, and you could do something that's like, vote for kids a week before the election or the day ballots come out or whatever, in a mail-in, most of California in a mail-in ballot state, like things like that, that really cost no money, and allow you to help organize. It's such an easy ask of people to do. So think about ways that you can do that that are going to have a digital impact as well.
Okay, then this is a lot of fun. And I don't know who made up the who's for kids and who's just kidding. Maybe Charlie, who did that, but doing candidate questionnaires and the theme is you can use this because it's in the public domain. I think you can use it. I've used it 100 times. So it's sort of helping people identify who's for kids. And you do a candidate questionnaire. Here are some examples of questions that you can ask. You can do this as a nonprofit as long as it isn't obvious from your questions which candidate you are supporting. So you can't say, do you support so-and-so's plan for X? No, but you can ask all the candidates questions about what their goals are for kids, what specific things they may or may not endorse, what they're going to do to get more money for childcare. You can get a media partner in this, but now that we have social media, you can advertise their answers, distribute them widely. You can do mailings to voters with the responses. You can get an insert in a local newspaper with the responses. And it's a game, not a game. It's not to get candidates to actually respond to questionnaires because they get a lot of them. And you want to make sure they know that the leading candidate or that an important candidate has filled out a questionnaire. So you work with the staff to get them to actually fill out the questionnaire. Sometimes it requires some competition among the candidates. And then, of course, you want to disseminate the results. So I love candidate questionnaires. Nicole, you've
Yeah,
already
they're really useful. And also I will say do it sooner than later. It's not too late in July right now. It's not too late in August, but don't send out a candidate questionnaire, in October or the end of September because A, you're not going to get the attention to it, and B, it's not going to be able to have the impact. So August is kind of an ideal time to send out candidate questionnaires. So as you're kind of thinking about that. And on the dissemination piece of it, like think about how you can do some graphics. Like you could, show the candidates and it's like, where do they stand on X, Y, or Z? And that can be a really easy way to disseminate results. The other thing I would say is think about the press of it. You can pull out comments that they put on their questionnaires and send a press release that's like candidate statements, candidate positions on children and youth. I have seen that covered, and it is underutilized tactic because it makes it really easy for the press, and they're hearing directly from these campaigns in a way that they may not be able to get, and you write the story for them. So that's another thing that I think can be really good.
And the last thing we're going to talk about before we turn this over to Christine is to share with us what the Silicon Valley Community Foundation is doing is, to me, the biggest, most important thing you can do. There is still time to do it. It is July and, well, there's still time to see who's going to be president. So there's certainly time to organize a candidate forum. And my first candidate forum, I didn't know what we were doing. I didn't understand what candidate forums were. It's just like good organizer, organize a candidate forum, never been to one in San Francisco, knew almost nothing about it. Did not know that we were organizing the largest campaign forum of the entire election. We filled, a whole school auditorium. Did not realize how unique that was and what a huge impact that was going to have on the candidates. That was a lesson that I took with me for 25 years as an advocate for kids. So, some of the steps and everything you go through to organize a candidate forum, you have sponsors with credibility, hard thing to get them to committed to a date. But if you say these, 15 organizations are sponsoring this, and you juggle and you beg and you change and you get a date when everybody will agree to come, you make sure it's only the major candidates. You create a place that can be made smaller if need be, but can hold a large crowd, and you publicize it. There are ways to make these candidate forums just totally a lot of fun. They do not have to be boring. They can have candidates talk to each other. You can have young people asking questions. We called on a little girl at one candidate forum. She said, well, what do you all do for fun? And one of the candidates, it was a spontaneous thing. One of the candidates is a real pill and couldn't come up with anything they did for fun. Lost a lot of votes that way. And there's short, snappy formats you can use where people hold up signs, whether it's a yes or a no. But my favorite thing to do at a candidate forum, of course, is to have big signs up there and have them sign a pledge with your agenda on it. You have the agenda and you ask them who's willing to sign the pledge in front of the audience. So I will show the next slide and then let Nicole talk about candidate forums. I swear to God, and Nicole has heard me say this now, and it may or may not be true, I don't care, but we had a candidate forum between Gavin Newsom and his opponent, and everybody, we had all the children's people coming to this neighborhood center, and They were all in favor of the other candidate, and the other candidate behaved like an ass. And Gavin came in and he had done his homework. He answered every question. He committed to everything that people in the audience wanted. Half the audience changed their votes. I maintain that's how he got elected mayor, and how he got elected mayor is how he got elected governor, and how he got elected governor is how he's going to be president. But hey, and we'll take credit for that candidate for him. But it does just show you, the impact that a powerful candidate forum can have. And I want to leave Christine enough time. So this is sort of obvious things you do to do the outreach and the follow-up, and social media lets you just advertise this to the hilt, what people said, funny things they said, powerful things they said. So Nicole, you want to talk about candidates?
Yeah, just a couple things to add. Candidates get a lot of requests for different candidate forums, and there's a lot of politics involved in like how many, we all saw what happens at a debate sometimes. So there's a lot of politics involved in terms of how many, forums folks are willing to do, et cetera. So the way that you make it most likely that candidates will commit to coming to those things, number one, organize it early, get a date out early. If you can, depending on how many candidates are in the race, coordinate with them, do like a little doodle to help sort of figure out what day they can do before you just say it's definitely going to be this day, because you may have no idea. They may have the biggest fundraiser of their campaign that day, or another candidate forum's already scheduled, et cetera. But get on scheduling it early. The next thing about it is have the most wide, diverse group of co-sponsors for that candidate forum as soon as you possibly can, because when they see that this is not just one organization, but it's 50 organizations and they're representing preschools and after school programs and all these things in different parts of your community, they're going to be like, oh, I got to do this, right? Make the bar for entry for people signing on to be a co-sponsor super low because you want a lot of names on that. Okay. It doesn't mean that those folks have to go in and organize the whole event or moderate it. You want to have that kind of core steering committee of organizations that are doing the hard work there. But you want to have the widest list of co-sponsors as possible to ensure that candidates attend, and also that the press covers it. So just a couple of things there.
Yeah, I want to now turn this over to Christine, because to talk about Choose Children and show you this. For some of you, you will actually remember this, that the Children's Defense Fund did. I think I'm the only person in the country with this. And the point is you want them to care about it after they're elected, not just before they're elected. So I am now going to turn this over to Christine to tell us about Choose Children.
Great. Well, thank you, Margaret. I'm just going to get my screen ready to share here. Okay. Can everybody see my Choose Children slides?
Yes.
Awesome. Great. So I will try to go through this. We don't have too much time left, and we're a relatively small group. So if people have questions throughout, hop off mute and please ask and interrupt. A lot of what we do with Choose Children is things that you just saw. So we do many of those things, but I'll start right back from the beginning, give you a little history of it and what it's all about, what we've learned from doing it for a few years. So essentially, Choose Children is an effort that has been ongoing for quite a while. And what we do is use the opportunity provided by an election to elevate issues important to particularly young children. So the Choose Children primarily focuses on infants, toddlers, preschoolers, early childhood education, and the needs of families and those that care for them. We do talk about older children and youth a little bit, but we're really focused on trying to elevate the babies and the littlest in our community and their needs. So we are a partnership of a number of different organizations. It's led by the Community Foundation. It was the initiative was started here, but we absolutely do not do this alone. We couldn't possibly have the kind of reach and influence and that we would want if we were doing it by ourselves. So we've created a partnership of different organizations across the Silicon Valley, which is the two counties, San Mateo and Santa Clara County, that we work within. And why do we do it? What's the expected outcome? When I described, there's a lot of things that why we think it's important to get engaged in the election cycle. And the first is just generating greater public interest in early care and learning. People love babies, but they don't necessarily talk about them a lot during elections, don't necessarily think about beyond, like, isn't that wonderful? And so we really want to think about what are the needs of young children and their families. So more public interest. Our biggest goal is really, though, to drive the better candidate understanding and then future commitment to early childhood. And we think it's really powerful to engage with all the candidates who are running. Ultimately, yes, somebody will be elected, and we want someone in office who will drive greater investment and pro-family policies. But we also really think that almost anyone who's standing up to run in our local elections is probably engaged in some way in the community. And by creating more and more champions, whether they win or they don't, we are continuing to grow our community of champions for young kids. It's an opportunity for us to create deeper community partnerships when we bring all of our community partners together on these issues. It helps us to create some unified messaging. So the way we communicate to candidates, we're starting to use a lot of the same language, which is helpful. It gives us a chance we run basically every 2 years. So every 2 years to really kind of mobilize our community of champions and keep momentum going for ultimately, if we were to have a ballot measure, we've got a good community of champions already engaged in the work. And then last is ultimately the big goal at the end of the day would be better, more investment and better family, pro-family policies, and helping us to drive towards a region where families with children can live and thrive. So that's our ultimate goal. It's a three-prong approach, and we use all three of these ways to engage with both candidates and the public. So the first part of the approach is that we engage in strategic polling or voter survey. And this is really key for our work. So back in January of this year, we did a survey of likely November voters. And I'm happy to share, and Margaret put the link in, I know, the presentation, and I'm happy to share afterwards the link to the press release and the general results. And if anyone's interested, I'm happy to meet and go deeper in because we have tons of information. But we poll not just voters' attitudes around, would you support a ballot measure? Would you support greater investment? But we really take that opportunity to learn what are the experiences of families and likely November voters in our region? How do they feel about these issues? What policies and suggest ideas of solutions in our region how would they feel about them? And then that polling information is what gives us the hook to meet with candidates. So that gives us some information that the candidates are hungry for, they're very interested in, and that opens the door when we reach out and say, hey, we'd like to meet with you. So then we do direct candidate engagement, and we meet with every one of the candidates who's running for the targeted races that we select. We offer them to have a one-on-one briefing. We share all the polling results. And some of them, like this year, we asked a lot of questions about families' financial experiences as well as lifestyle changes, particularly relative to the issue of childcare. And we had some really, they were challenging, disturbing results around how challenging it is for families, but really enlightening information for candidates. And the fact that we're looking, these are voters, and this is what the people who are voting are experiencing. And for instance, that 4 out of 10 of our likely November voters with children under 18 could not look for work or take a job because of childcare issues. That's 40%. That is a huge portion. So candidates were really interested. And then after we meet with all the candidates, we brief them, we talk about the poll, we talk about early childhood, they help them to learn more about the whole issue. We also hold candidate forums on children and families issues, and we do that in partnership with our community. And then lastly, the third part of our strategy is media presence. So we have a website, we have a social media campaign, we try to get earned media, we put out press releases, and so we try to up the profile. How Choose Children came about very quickly, the history. So it did start, some of you might remember, I've seen the campaign from 2018. We launched it with a big statewide campaign focused on the gubernatorial race, the one that Margaret mentioned when Gavin Newsom was elected. That campaign was many, many partners across the state. We established the Choose Children brand and logo. We had an early childhood policy platform. We did voter surveying, a lot of media, created a 100-day action plan. We co-sponsored the only televised debate in partnership with NBC and KQED. And so that was really, we think, pretty successful in getting some public commitments to early childhood. And then I think we've seen since 2018 some pretty significant investments in the space for young children. Then subsequent elections, we pivoted to being more focused locally. 2020 was a challenging one because we were just in the middle of lockdown and dealing with the pandemic. We had a very small campaign and focused only on one open supervisor seat in Santa Clara County. And then in 2022, we focused on, again, local races. We had 3 county supervisor seats that were open, as well as the San Jose mayor's race. We did a lot of the stuff we learned from past, so the polling, the briefings, the forums, media. We also did a voter guide on children's issues. And this one we did just for Santa Clara County, and we actually put out a questionnaire, like Margaret mentioned. We have 5 questions. The voter questionnaire went to every single candidate for city council, county seats, school boards, for all of the towns. So it was pretty far reaching. And then it was published on a website, and then we put out a press release and social media, and voters could go and check. And it was word for whatever the candidates typed in to the link they had is what got published on the site. So if they took the time and were careful answers, that's what people saw. If they made spelling mistakes, that's what people saw. And it was interesting at the end, and once it was published, there were a few candidates who did not get their responses in time, and they were most upset, but they'd had many, many warnings and encouragement to get it in. So they really did, at the end of the day, want to move forward with it. So that was a good, and we had almost 5,000 views on the voter guide. So a lot of people were looking at it before they were voting. We're in the heart of it right now in 2024. And I will say it's definitely not too late to get started on this work, but if for future planning, the real opportunity is to engage in the primary, mostly because you have more candidates at that time. They have yet to establish and create their policy platforms and their agendas. So they were very open to getting new information. They were a little bit more open to coming to candidate forums and doing tours and things. And I think you'd have an opportunity, especially with a local election, to really start to shape candidates' views on things when we engage. So we did a bunch of voter surveying, with 14 candidate briefings. We posted 3 candidate forums. And then moving into the fall, we're going to do 3 more candidate forums in partnership with our community members. Continued candidate engagement. One of the things we try to do for early childhood is we invite them to come on tours of childcare centers, meet with providers and families, and continue our expanded social media and get out the vote issues. So Margaret, can you watch my time for me so I don't go I don't want to go late.
You got 5 minutes.
Okay, so I won't go through all of this.
It's
in the slides that Margaret's going to share. This is just some of the information we share with the candidates. We try to open their minds to, why would you choose children? Why are they important? We also try to broaden the ideas beyond just, a lot of folks think of early childhood, they immediately go to childcare. And for some local positions, somebody like a mayor running for the mayor, it's like, well, childcare is not my job. And actually, I do think childcare could be your job, but even if you didn't want to go that way, there are so many other things that are important to children and families. So we actually made a choice not to create for these local elections, a very specific set of requests, but we cast the net broad and said, we want you to be pro family and child. And that could mean making better parks. That could mean increasing library services, healthcare options, better food and housing. It can also mean childcare. So we try to open their minds a little bit. This is just a sample from, we've done our candidate forums in person and via Zoom. We bring in providers, families, and young children, not little young children, but children to ask questions. And we usually try to make sure families are well represented. We have, this is some of our social media push. A lot of it is about getting out and your vote matters and thinking about voting for kids. And do you know where to vote, how to vote? This is some of our partner organizations, and our list is constantly growing. So I do a lot of presentations to community groups where I share the results of the polling and then what our efforts are. And we usually get more and more groups who are signing on to be part of and they co-hosting our forums and help with our social media. And we do have a children's pledge. So it's similar to an agenda, and all of our partner organizations, as well as we share this with all the candidates, is that we have a Choose Children Partnership Pledge. And we ask that if you want to be part of our group, you agree to commit and that this is what you stand for and believe in. And so this is our version of the agenda. And then lastly, if you want more information, check out Choose Children. We have a website. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook. And my information, you can absolutely reach out to me. I'm happy to share more about what we've learned. I think we've found, people have said, do you think it was success? Is it successful? And what we have done post-election season is gone back and looked and see like how many have brought early childhood into their campaign platforms, how many have followed through with commitments. And we actually have seen, whether it's directly related to us or not, but our local county supervisors have leaned in really strongly to early childhood and made millions and millions of dollars of investments that were not new dollars that we went to the ballot for, but were existing funds out of the general fund in other ways that we've seen budgets. And one interesting one, we were talking about making sure that childcare providers had access to health insurance in an affordable way. And that was something we had planted a seed for. And now I'm hearing rumblings of some of our county supervisors thinking about how could we make that happen and how could we bring some services. So not necessarily going to the ballot for something, but how do they rethink how we're doing stuff locally?
So that is fabulous.
That's it.
such good example of what has worked. It's such a model for all of us. I just want people to appreciate that the theory behind this is that if we can get people engaged at the local level, that trickles up to engagement and ultimately getting people excited about politics generally, getting people willing to vote, getting people engaged. So that is our theory of change here, that all this local engagement is exciting. It's very personal. You see the impact, you see the expressions on people's faces. You see what Christine has seen, like, oh my God, now they know that healthcare for childcare workers is important. That happened. And I remember there when, the question was asked. So we really ran out of the time that we had. So any comments people have? We got some good experts in all this on here. If anybody wants to make a final comment, well, it's 1 o'clock. What can I say? Any final comments? If not, I really thank you all for coming. Hope this was sort of fun as we had promised.